Now, get a little more insight on Georgia. Talking about your guys' offense, because we talked about the defense a little bit.
Yeah.
What are you guys looking at wide receiver, tight end? I know you guys got Oscar Delp, but replacing Brock Bowers and Lag McHonkey, that's a big portion of yardage last year. And obviously you got Carson Beck. Year two, you think he's obviously going to take a step forward. Been on campus for what, 5 years now? Forever, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, it's his fourth year. Yeah. Well, I mean, Brock Bowers isn't getting replaced. I mean, that's just the end of that conversation. I mean, there's not another. That's just all there is. Now, and Oscar Delp is really good. And if Brock Bowers had never existed, I think Oscar Delp would be getting even more hype than he is. But it's everything is always in comparison to something else, right? Well, in comparison to Brock Bowers, Oscar Delp is some amount below that. He's still really, really good. I don't doubt or have any question marks or anything about Oscar Delp. Lad McConkey is a little bit different. Now we've got a bunch of Lad McConkeys on the team in that we've got a bunch of undersized slot receivers. But I don't know that any of them are going to do what Lad McConkey could do. We don't have a wide receiver one, period. Ra Thomas was the closest we had to a wide receiver one, and he's been promoted to fan. So Dylan Bell is good, but he's 5'5". I mean, I'm exaggerating. These are all people that are under 6'2". I mean, Dylan Bell and Dom Lovett, and then a couple of transfers. That the big tall kid from Miami, Jacoby Young, is that his name? Michael Jackson from Southern Cal, the kid we got from Vandy. Georgia doesn't recruit wide receivers very well, so that's where they spend a lot of their time in the portal, is bringing in wide receivers. They did it 2 seasons ago. Now they've done it again this season. But Georgia's got a bunch of really good wide receiver twos. Georgia's got a bunch of wide receivers that would be a great second option on almost any team in the country, except for maybe Ohio State, who's just ridiculous at there. But they don't have a dominant outside wide receiver. They don't have a George Pickens. Ra Thomas would have been the closest to that. But all of the wide receivers are good. Are any of them great? Probably not. I think Dom Lovett and Dylan Bell are going to be very productive because they're Lad McConkey type receivers. So they're going to be running. It's a familiarity thing for Carson Beck. So those two guys are going to be running the same routes, lining up in the same places that Lad McConkey's been lining up in for the last couple of years. Again, are they as good as Lad McConkey? No, but they're good enough. I think they'll have good years. Offensive line will be fine. Running backs, I've been down on the running back situation for a couple of years. Georgia had a string of running backs that just makes your jaw hit the floor. You're going all the way back to Todd Gurley in 2012. But this following list of running backs, at least one, in some cases 3, and in almost all cases, at least 2 of these running backs I'm about to name were on Georgia's team every single year from 2012 till 2 years ago. Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, DeAndre Swift, James Cook, Kenny McIntosh.
Good Lord.
1, 2, and in some cases 3 of those players were on Georgia at the same time from 2012 to 2022.
That's ridiculous.
Last year, we didn't have anything close to that. Nothing close. We were playing, we had a Dabo special playing running back last year, Cash Jones, this little bitty white walk-on. And he would get the crowd excited when he came in because it's fun to watch those guys play. But the drop-off in overall talent of the running back position at Georgia was significant. Now, that was due to injuries last year, and a lot of those guys are back. There's a lot of excitement about this young kid, Nate Frazier, a true freshman who might end up being pretty good. But we got both the Robinson kids there. Of course, bring ETN back or in through the portal. So I don't know if Georgia's running back room will be like what it was when we had Chubb and Michelle sharing carries. But I do think Georgia's running backs will be better than they were either of the last 2 seasons. Last season for sure. So I think they'll be okay offensively. I mean, they were top 5 offense last year in points per game, total yards, the whole deal. Carson Beck's one of the best returning quarterbacks in football, somewhere in the top 5. People can argue about where they want to put him there, but he's a top 5 returning quarterback, bunch of yards. You would expect him to, like you mentioned, take a step forward in year 2, but he had a really good year 1. I mean, if all I got out of Carson Beck this year is what I got last year, that'd be hard to complain about. He needs to work on his deep ball a little. He throws a pretty deep ball. But the timings just always seems off. He would, he's overthrowing one, he's underthrowing another one. He missed on a lot of deep balls last year. That'd be maybe one area he would need to improve in this year. But completion percentage was really high. The touchdown to interception ratio was good. He threw for a ton of yards. Now he's not mobile. 3rd and 4, can he scramble for 5 yards? Yeah, once a game, something like that maybe. But he's not he's more of a traditional pocket passer than what you see most teams playing with these days. He's not going to hurt you with his legs. He like I said, he might be good to pick up a first down for you once or twice a game, on 3rd and medium type situations. But yeah, he'll have a good year. We'll see how the chemistry is between him and the wide receivers. But I think Georgia's offense is going to be one of the best in the country again this year. They get everybody. The quarterback is back, head coach is back, offensive coordinator is back. You look at the top teams in the country, not many of them can say that. Ohio State's got a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback. Alabama's got a brand new coaching staff. Texas is intact, Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers, but a lot of the top teams are changing a lot over there. Georgia brings most of it back. I think they're going to be pretty good again offensively.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are going to be kind of wide receiver by committee and fill it that way, and that works out sometimes. Sometimes
you know how many 1,000-yard receivers Georgia's had? You know this joke?
I don't. Probably not a lot.
One.
Because for the longest, Georgia was just ground and pound, known for that style of offense.
Georgia has one wide receiver that's ever had a 1,000-yard season in 120 years.
Ever?
Ever. Terrence Edwards, 2002.
Wow.
Yeah. And that gets used against us all the time on the recruit. We can't even get the top wide receivers out of the state of Georgia. Never mind going nationwide to just pluck top wide receivers. We're
that's insane.
Short end of the straw there. So that's why what Georgia ends up with is a bunch of wide receivers who check off like all of the boxes except one. Right, yeah. Which is what prevents them from being 5 stars or really high-rated 4 stars. So maybe they're fast and they run good routes, but they're 5'9". Right. Maybe they're 6'5", but they're slow and can't catch that good, or whatever. Like they don't have any. You used the word unicorn, or they don't have no unicorn wide receivers. A miracle we got George Pickens, but they've got good wide receivers. They would be wide receiver 2s on most teams. That's what you'd look at these guys and you go, that's a slot receiver. But at Georgia, they may be playing out wide because you just don't have that. Georgia just doesn't have that on the outside. So you end up every year with 4, 5, 6 receivers that are catching 500 and 600 yards, instead of one with 1,200 or 1,300. The overall passing numbers for Georgia have improved drastically over the last 5 or 6 years. Stetson Bennett never threw for more than 3,200 yards, 3,300. Jake Fromm before that never broke 3,000 yards. You got quarterbacks throwing for 5,000 yards a year. Georgia's down here making the national title game in 2017 with a quarterback that threw for 2,700 yards and couldn't run on top of that, and Jake Fromm. So they've come a long way. I mean, Carson Beck had 4,000 yards last year. He'll have it again this year. They'll have one of the best passing games in the country again. But it is true that they don't have your prototypical alpha wide receiver. They just don't have that. So, if you can come up with a secondary, then you got a chance against those wide receivers, because these aren't first round draft pick guys playing wide receiver for the now. Maybe you get lucky with a Lab McConkey or something, and it's just an out of the blue thing. No one saw it coming. But you look in Georgia's wide receiver room and you try to point out which one of these wide receivers is going to make it in the NFL. It's a coin flip. Because none of them check enough boxes to just automatically pencil them in as, okay, that's the go-to guy.
Yeah, and that, from a Clemson standpoint, that's interesting because, I feel good about Clemson's defense, but if I had to pick a few areas, and it's not necessarily I don't like the guys that are going to run out there first. I'm just not sure about the depth, right? There's two position groups. There's defensive end. There's the edge position group that I'm not sure how the depth is going to perform there. But the first two guys running out, Peter Woods, I mean, everybody knows what that dude can do. And TJ Moore from last year was a freshman and absolutely dominated at the position. So just expect more of that from him. But talking about the cornerback position, we got Avion Terrell, the brother of AJ Terrell, who plays for the Falcons now. That's probably our number one elite lockdown type corner. Again, true sophomore, young guy, but got a lot of play last year and proved himself. And then on the other side, you got a 3-year guy in Jaden Lucas who hasn't been able to be healthy, but a freakish dude when it comes to just his measurables and, talent level, right? And then Shelton Lewis. But unfortunately, those two guys are the day-to-day guys. They got little nagging injuries or whatever. They're quote-unquote day-to-day. And behind those guys, you got maybe a Brandon Strozier that's got a little bit of experience, not very much. And the rest are rolling out there going to be true freshmen.
Yeah.
Past that, which, Ashton Hampton, measurables are great. Good reviews out of fall camp. But again, how much do you want to put on a true freshman? So safety, we're deep. Linebacker, we're deep. Defensive tackle, crazy deep there. But if I had to talk about our defense, those two kind of position groups, the depth is what worries me a little bit there.
What's that freshman linebacker y'all got that Georgia was going after too?
Sammy
white guy. Yes, he going to play any year one?
Yes. I think he definitely plays year one. I think they're going to keep his role, somewhat limited. Obviously, we got Barrett Carter, could have went pro, came back. You got Wade Woodaz, who's just kind of a freaky dude. But he is dead. Sammy Brown is definitely going to get in on the rotation. He'll obviously, like Dabo likes to do, he'll be a starter on special teams.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that guy, he's too good. Physically, I mean, he looks like, some of your best linebackers in the country physically.
Yeah.
Now we'll see, kind of how linebacker tends to be somewhat of a tougher position sometimes, especially in Clemson's defense. They ask that, that middle linebacker guy, the inside linebackers, they ask them to do a lot. So we'll see what, how far mentally he can come and grasp it in the defense and being comfortable there. But physically, I don't think you could keep that dude off the field. He's just physically ready to be on the field.
Yeah, Georgia. I know Georgia wanted him bad, and talked about wide receiver being the position where Georgia probably misses the most in recruiting or whatever. Inside linebacker is the exact opposite. Like they pretty much get who they want, and they went after him hard. So he must be Georgia saw something in him, so he's probably a good one.
Yeah, I think he probably ends up being one of the greats before he leaves Clemson. So I'm excited to see what his role is heading into the season and what kind of role he can carve out. But I get you don't keep people like that off the field. There's just certain freshmen that come in that regardless of how deep you are at a position group, they're just going to force their way on the field. A guy like Peter Woods did that last year at the defensive tackle position. We were very deep there. He just forced his way on the field because he's just that good.
Right.
And that Sammy Brown, I think, is another one of those guys that just you're going to be forced to put him on the field.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.